Welcome to episode 6 of The Build. I'm Chris and I'm building 3 writings into the world's next best English single malt whisky. This week in building the whisky, biggest achievement was got out on the road with the next episode of Made in Yorkshire. Went down to Theakston, our brewing partner, spent the day there with Simon, walking through the whole process, really getting a good deep understanding of how we turn the malted barley into the great beer that we then distill at the distillery. Biggest challenge, well, we're in summer now, as you can see. I'm just embracing the summery atmosphere. What that does, creates problems with some supply chains. There's loads of factories and things going on holiday, lots of people taking holidays, so I'm going to have a couple of days off, but that just creates a few problems and things. Biggest surprise this one is a really nerdy one. So at Theakston's, we spent some time really understanding each step of the process. So we really got a good understanding of the malt flavours when we're at the maltsters, and then talking about how they come together to make the beer. But the biggest one was the flavour impact of the bespoke Theakston yeasts that they've got there, a top fermenting and a bottom fermenting yeast. And the flavours that those yeasts actually bring through are actually characteristic of 3 writings. So particularly when you're standing there over the Yorkshire Square open top fermenters, the smell of banana is just amazing, and it's that's one of the flavours that just flows all the way through 3 writings. So that was a really big surprise. Where are we overall? 81 days to go to the launch. So the things coming at us really fast. Things are getting exciting. Going to be launching the waitlist soon. And the waitlist is what you'll need to be on if you want to guarantee yourself one of these first release. The Evolution Collection members, owners, and therefore the Evolution Whisky Club members, they've obviously already got 1 bottle lined up and allocated as part of their collection that they own. So that's the first 200, and then we've got 800 left. So I'm going to be creating this wait list, which I'll put out on socials and let everyone know about, promote that, and then that will be how you get a bottle of the first release. I'm going to talk a little bit more in the future, and I've mentioned it in the previous ones, that there will be a sort of levels in those 800. There will be a collector's version, which will be the full collector's box. And then there will be, if you like, a bottle-only version, which will still be really nice, but it just won't have the big, expensive collector's box and things attached to it. But I'll spend time on that a little bit later on. This week we had the bag choice, which is the new thing to go around the collector's box. And if you haven't already seen it, the choice was embroidered, which personally, that's what I wanted to choose. So I'm really glad you all agreed with me. It was about a 75-25 split in terms of the choice, but I think the embroidered one is just right. Right quality, durability, also means the bag, if you don't want to leave it on your whiskey, you can actually use it for other things, and that embroidered logo is going to stay there for a long time. What I learned this week, what I really am enjoying learning so much more about the detail of how 3 writings comes together. You sort of know all these things when you're setting it up. Like 3-4 years ago when we talked about how we're going to create the beer, I'll freely admit I didn't know all the details of the maltings, and I've been absolutely fascinated spending the time with Bev and understanding that a lot better. It's prompted me to go off and do a lot more reading and research and understanding all these different levels. So I'm going to put some things out there to show you just the little things. Apologise, Spaniel is just rolling around on the side there. Where is he? Just being a complete knob, upside down. There he is. And then the other one was time. This is one that I found fascinating as I've spent the time. Is Fawcett and Theakston both really take their time with what they're doing at each part of the process. So when you think back, obviously there's a 3 years and a day is what whiskey has to stay in cask before it becomes a whiskey. What I didn't fully appreciate is when you then step back even further, just what's got to happen before you even put the spirit in there. So to take ours, for example, we use, with Theakston, we use winter pearl barley, so winter grown. That is planted around mid-September, and then it is harvested July, August, depending on the weather. So almost 10 months in the ground. And as we learnt on the Made in Yorkshire with the maltings, the barley, once it's harvested and it been accepted as malting grade, then needs to sit and rest and is dormant for 3 months. So you've got 10 months there in the ground growing, 3 months dormant, then it goes into the maltings. And the process, as Bevan talked through when we were there, is a 13-day process. So 3 days in the steep, 7 days on the floor, and then 3 days in the kiln drying. And that's how we sort of have our 13 days to create the malts. Each one of those steps is a little bit longer, a little bit slower, allowing flavours to develop. And that's one of the reasons why Thomas Fawcett & Son produce some of the best malts in the world. They export all over the place for people making amazing craft beers. We then head over to the brewery, and the process to make our distiller's beer is a slow one. I think there's around 96 hours in the ferment, but beginning to end is a 2-week process to basically make the beer, which then comes over to Ella's farm for distillation. So then you add the 3 years and a day for the minimum, but then when you then get into the long, obviously long maturations, you can understand, why there's a lot of cost involved in whiskey, but also just the time. What would I do differently is always a question I ask myself. As I've mentioned, I've been trying to do as much of this as myself through this process. And I think with all the work that the Ellis Farm team are doing, absolutely smashing it with Dutch Barn at the moment. I've been using, every now and then, using a little bit of resource, but I think resisting the urge to use externals. But the team are just getting too busy, so I'm now having to bring in a few external things just on some design and on those long form things like Made in Yorkshire, bringing a little bit of edit resource just so that it's a little bit better quality, so that the content that we can produce for YouTube is a bit better than me just sitting there with CapCut and my fat fingers making things work. Should have done that sooner, in honesty. I was trying to do it to save money, to save budget, but in reality probably should have done that about a month ago or a couple of weeks ago to really sort of set ourselves up better. What's next? Off to London tomorrow for some founder conversations, and these ones are a little bit different. I'm not going to spoil what they are, but they are a little bit different, and hopefully will bring some really interesting just founder type chat, talking about building businesses and the challenges of taking on categories and all sorts of things. Make sure you're following the Instagram channel particularly to get notice of when the waitlist comes live. If you're on the email subscribing, if you subscribe to 3 Writings Whisky, there's an email you can sign up for there. You'll get notice about it there as well, but Instagram is where you'll probably find out about it sooner. The episode of Made in Yorkshire from Theakston's will be out on the 13th of August. And just want to say, as I go off and try and have a couple of days break, thanks for everyone for following. It's been amazing what we've been able to get to so far. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the content. Please, subscribe and hit the like button. Throw some comments in there, even if you like the hat, you hate the hat. All the comments count because it helps drive the algorithms and helps push this content out further, which is great because people in the whiskey world, hopefully. What I'm producing for 3 Writings here on Chris Builds a Whiskey is really good, but ultimately we're building an amazing whiskey, and I just want everyone out there to know about it and hear about it, and this is how we do it, and you're part of that. So please, thanks if you already subscribe and follow and like and comment, but I know there's loads of you are watching the content. Please, love you to subscribe and get involved. Thanks very much. See you next time.